It happens naturally, but it wouldn't happen without your intervention.
We do say if you leave a bucket of grapes in the corner, it will turn into wine. It'll be good for a moment, but you've got to capture it and harness it and then make sure it's contained. Otherwise, there's that beautiful moment, it's wine, and then it's on a race to spoilage as well. So, yeah, it is something that blossoms, and then you just have to capture it in that beautiful moment.
This is Life and Faith, the podcast where we seek to be good company, inviting you to a table of gathered friends, experiences and ideas, and where what's served up might not always agree with you, where you might hear an opinion you wouldn't normally embrace for yourself, but we think it's good to share a table with those with whom we mightn't always agree, because, well, we're all human after all, trying to make sense of our lives, the world, and all things life and faith. Welcome to Life and Faith from CPX. I'm Simon Smart.
And I'm Natasha Moore.
Now, frequently on Life and Faith, we're addressing some pretty serious stuff. There's lots going on in the world that's not great, and we do believe in getting stuck into those discussions. But today is more of a purely celebratory episode.
Yes, we'd love you to pull up a comfy chair to the table here and raise a glass with us to the goodness of wine. Now, maybe you're not a drinker or not a wine drinker, but we think you'll still enjoy this conversation about work and life and family and grapes and loving what you do. But if you are a wine lover, this episode is a special treat for you. Simon, I think you enjoy a glass, don't you? What's your tipple of choice?
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I really like Chardonnay, but the more crisp variety, not the kind of buttery, woody one. So I love a good crisp one. I've found one that I really love from Orange, from Printhy Wines. Beautiful.
Oh, lovely.
Loving that one at the moment. What about you, Natasha?
I have for a long time been kind of a Shiraz/Chardonnay drinker, but recently I've been I do love a sparkling Shiraz. Love a sparkling red.
Okay.
And recently, I guess since I moved to South Australia a few years ago, I'm here in Adelaide. I've got like 3 amazing wine regions within like an hour of my house. And so I've been drinking a bit more Grenache and Tempranillo.
You feel obligated to sample these things, no doubt.
Oh yeah, it's a labour having to do that, having moved here. That's right. You got to enter into the local customs and everything.
Yeah, exactly. I like red, but if I have even a really small glass of red, I get a terrible headache.
Oh yeah,
so
that
I'm
sucks.
Sticking to the whites.
Well, I'm just sniffing the wines at the moment, being pregnant. So
Exactly. Yeah, that's wise. Let's introduce you to some of the people behind the bottle. Chaffey Bros Wines has been around for about 15 years, but they've already won a slew of awards, including World's Best Shiraz and World's Best GSM in the last few years. Now, that's a pretty staggering title to win. And they have some fun labels. It's all about the label, isn't it? And some fun names for their wines. You might find Not Your Grandma's Rosé or Not Your Grandma's Riesling at your local bottle shop.
Yeah, the brothers, or rather they are brothers-in-law behind Chaffey Bros Wines, are Daniel Chaffey Hartwig and Theo Engela. And I sat down with them recently to ask whether making wine is as romantic as it sounds and what God has to do with it. I started by asking how they got into the wine business in the first place.
For me, this is a full circle moment, having been born in the Barossa Valley. A hapless school leaver, didn't really know what to do. Took odd jobs in the Barossa, worked in cellar doors, including Penfolds, and printed wine labels, worked as a bulk wine broker over the years, and basically danced around every element of the wine business without making wine up until we kicked off properly in 2011 as winemakers. So yeah, for me, it was delaying the inevitable, it seems, and being dragged into the vortex of wine in the Barossa.
Couldn't get away.
Couldn't get away.
How about you, Theo?
My introduction to the wine industry was through Daniel. So before that, I was working as an economist for the state government here in South Australia. I'd studied business and marketing. So initially I joined Dan just to help on the business side of things. It was just the two of us back then. And so I quickly fell into the winemaking side as well.
It sounds like a bit of a dream job. Like, I go to wineries and sit and drink the wine, and it's very picturesque, and the whole thing just seems very beautiful. Though I know lots of dream jobs are maybe not as glamorous as they look from the outside. What's amazing and what's hard about winemaking?
I think one of the amazing things about winemaking is seeing something that is such an accessible raw product. Everybody's familiar with eating grapes. There's a very simple fruit there to be enjoyed in food form, but seeing those fairly straightforward flavors just being completely transformed by this natural process of fermentation into something that is so layered and complex and intriguing and almost otherworldly compared to the original simple flavors of the fruit. I find even though we're winemakers, we're part of the journey, but we're observing, and we've used the term chaperones before because the process is just something that's going to happen, and we can merely steer and influence it. But it's watching a transformation take place, and it's unlike any other product I can think of in the way it happens naturally, yet delivers something that's just so complicated and complex and so rewarding to enjoy.
It happens naturally, but it wouldn't happen without your intervention. Yeah.
Well, we do say if you leave a bucket of grapes in the corner, it will turn into wine. It'll be good for a moment, but you've got to capture it and harness it, and then make sure it's contained. Otherwise, there's that beautiful moment, it's wine, and then it's on a race to spoilage as well. So, yeah, it is something that blossoms, and then you just have to capture it in that beautiful moment.
What about you, Theo? What's amazing? What's hard about it?
I think it's quite a unique product to make because there's an artisanal aspect to it, which makes it very rewarding. So we can add our spin to it where we are interpreting, how we feel about the grape variety or the region and expressing ourselves in that way. And then the position that we are in the value chain, it's really fun that we are working with vignerons on the land, all the way through to speaking to sommeliers at fine dining restaurants or something like that. So we get to meet a lot of different people, and our work week or our work month is very varied and diverse. So I really enjoy that aspect of it.
So is there anything you guys don't enjoy about it? Anything that's tough about this job?
It's certainly, when you make wine at scale, it's a long process, particularly red wines. So the wines we've made from the 2026 vintage, we've already released our rosé, in the middle of the year, and our white wines some of them being bottled tomorrow. But the red wines are going to be bottled, a Shiraz or a GSM will be bottled in over a year's time from when we harvest it. So it's an expensive process, and it's a risky process, I guess, in a sense, because we make these things that we hope that other people will enjoy. And you purchase quite a few tons of grapes every year, like even a small family winery like ours, we're in the hundreds of tons, and we're buying a lot of oak, and we're putting a lot of investment into wine that will only be released sometimes in 2 to 3 years from the time we harvest it. So that is something that's a lot of cash flow compared to so many other beverages or any other product. If you're running a restaurant, you serve the food, within days of purchasing it, hopefully, and you make a return. We're making something that will only generate money in years to come. So it's a lot of money going out before it comes in.
I think that the industry is very competitive. You're making a romantic product, an enjoyable product, but then the day-to-day realities are spreadsheets and emails. And so I think people have a romantic idea of what winemaking is like, but the reality is just like any other business.
So, I imagine if you have family meals, if people come round to your house, do they dare to bring wine with them, given that you guys are the experts?
For sure. There is often a bit of that, I wouldn't know what to bring, or, they felt intimidated. But yeah, many of our friends do. They're always curious to know what we think of a certain wine that they've discovered too. So I've got a few friends that love bringing wines, and throwing them into the mix. Yeah, it's fun to get together and open a few different bottles and see what everyone's discovered. Yeah, that's where the joy is. Like we love wines from other regions as well. I know Theo's a massive Chardonnay fan, so we don't make a Chardonnay, so we always enjoy seeing what Theo finds on the Chardonnay front. We've got friends who work with champagne producers in France. Obviously, it's great to see other industry professionals showing what they love. But yeah, I also love finding what friends have just found in their local bottle shop, because that's really good insights for us as to what jumps out at people that are similar to us, I guess. But everyone's got their own take and their own tastes.
Yeah, I think the impression that people have of the wine industry is that it's very snooty or inaccessible. But actually, when you're inside the industry, you realize everybody's very down to earth. Everybody's enjoying each other's products. Everybody's sharing that enthusiasm. If we are at a wine event with other wine producers, it's extremely friendly. It's very collaborative as well. Even if you're overseas in an export market, you'll see winemakers from all over the world, and everybody's very excited to get to know each other and learn from each other, because part of the joy of wine is that diversity. So that's a really nice aspect of the wine industry.
Yeah, it's a very community thing, the drinking of wine as well as the making of wine.
We were at a lunch in the Barossa recently. Theo wasn't in the valley that day, but it was all the Barossa winemakers getting together, and everybody brought a bottle along. And sometimes people bring something from out of the cellar that they haven't shared for 10, 20 years. Other people bring a curio that's caught their attention. And I guess when you're in the same region, seeing everyone's personal take on the region is really interesting as well. Like we all make Shiraz, for example. We all make Grenache and blends in the Barossa Valley. And many of us make Eden Valley Riesling, for example. So when you get together with all the other producers and see what they've done with somewhat similar fruit, that's fascinating and a real learning experience. You can do winemaking degrees and study, and you could travel the world, but you could also learn so much just from seeing what your neighbors do with similar fruit and looking at an end product and saying, well, how did they, and this is what we do sometimes, we buy the wine and go, how did they make that? Why have they ended up with a product that looks like that? And then, yeah, that's the fun, to try to reverse engineer or make something better. Like, how can we put our spin on it?
So tell me, what's distinctive about your wines?
Our approach has been to look at the traditional and classic grape varieties of our region and the wine styles of our region and just put our own unique spin on it. We're probably less conventional in our approach. So we really want to make wines that we love to drink and enjoy. So we are not really thinking about what does the market want. We're thinking about this vineyard, how does it want to express itself? And then we'll make styles that we really enjoy, and we hope and trust that we'll be able to find people that agree with us. And so that's part of the privilege of being a small wine business, is that we don't really have to worry too much about what the market is demanding. We will make something that we're really proud of, and then we'll put it out there and find our natural fans, audience. Our 1,000 true fans.
So even though we're doing things like wild fermentation, we are really trying to have a really pure and clean, expressive fruit profile that is complex, but it really is true to the vineyard origin. Factory winemaking, big company winemaking is the opposite, where they're adding a few more things. There might be some tannin added and some, most wine is extremely natural, and even the big companies are very much using grapes as the primary thing, but they might add a bit of tannin. They might add a bit of acid to balance the wine. There may just be more systemized and industrial sort of processes. Ours is very small batch, very controlled, and we really do fastidiously manage the ferments. When Huon Fechner came on board, we call him our trained winemaker. He's the one who studied winemaking at university, whereas Theo and I we just threw ourselves into it. You might be surprised that many people in the wine industry are untrained. So we now come at the challenge with a combination of the two approaches, the sort of shoot from the hip, self-trained approach that Theo and I have, or Google winemakers, as we probably were in the early days as well, or phone a friend winemakers. Then having his university experience and his extensive experience traveling around the world, working for some fantastic wineries like Henschke and some other overseas wineries, so really famous, well-established wineries. He's got all of that experience, and he's overlaid our sort of more gung-ho approach with a bit more of a regimented process. So the end result is that we make wine in a very democratic way. Particularly when we're blending, we come into the blending room with the same objective, and the outcome is usually the same. But we come at the thought process a little bit different. Each of us in a little bit different way, but with great respect, I think, for each's approach. And it's just a fantastic experience to sit in a tasting room and see what Theo's put forward as his trial blend for a Shiraz, what Huon has, all using the same components, and then I'll have a go. And whichever's is the best on the day we step forward each time. And then can we improve on that? And we all throw, again, some suggestions around, and it's a lot of fun.
A science and an art.
Absolutely.
I feel like this is working for you, right? Like your wines win awards. Can you give me a little bit of boasting about how great your wines are doing?
We've been extremely blessed in recent years. I think our wines have been consistently good for a number of years now. And I think there's been a real correcting of maybe perception. The wine press, when we first launched, saw that we had some very sort of funky new wave packaging, and maybe, the aesthetic distracted from the fact that we actually were sourcing some fantastic fruit from really wonderful family growers in the Barossa. For example, Huon's family has been on their vineyard, the Fechner family, for 7 generations. So we're really privileged to work with their fruit and a number of others. But it's taken some time for the wines to really establish their credentials and overcome maybe that fun, eye-catching packaging actually had something really serious behind it. And Evangeline winning the Decanter World Wine Awards Best in Show in 2024 was definitely one that put us on the map. And we sold out of that wine in about 36 hours after the award was announced, which was fantastic because the Decanter Awards, they call it the Olympics of wine. There's 18,000 wines in every year's competition, over 18,000. So just to make it to the finals is a miracle because you've got to get through, I don't know, it might be 8 to 10 different rounds of judging before you're even in the consideration of the Best in Show. And their objective would be the 300 master sommeliers that judge it. Their job is to just eliminate most of those 18,000 wines for the first 3 days. So just to have a wine that stands up, to not be kicked out, is amazing. So a silver medal was something to be proud of in that show. But to get to Best in Show, which is the highest accolade, is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, I think. Well, we hope it's not once in a lifetime. We're going to try and repeat it, but that was miraculous.
And, Australians in general feel ownership over your success, Aussie wines.
We're grateful for the support. And that's, success at home is something we're even more proud of. We've won, I think, recently the Australia's Best Rosé, the Real Review Awards. That's been the latest accolade. And we've had the Best Shiraz at Royal Adelaide Wine Show a couple of years ago as well. So, yeah, they're the ones we get really excited about those because every winemaker wants to win a major trophy at their local awards. And that's where most of our wine's consumed, is in Australia as well. But yeah, there's something especially validating and nice to win an award that's judged in France, for example, which the Decanter one was. That's something that you don't expect to see when, they're the home of winemaking, in a sense.
So were you there?
No.
Are you in the room?
No, the Decanter World Wine Awards there's no producers present whatsoever. It's a massive task. They've got kilometres of rows of bottles to judge and get through.
Yeah, right.
And we found out the same way as all the other winemakers do with your wine is through to, it's done very, very well. And then you wait for another week and find out. But at the Adelaide shows and the Sydney and Melbourne ones, you get to be a part of it and you get the call up. So you get a chance to quickly get a flight if need be. So that's lovely.
You're listening to Life and Faith, and Natasha is speaking with winemaking brothers-in-law Daniel Chaffey Hartwig and Theo Engela. Now, in this part of the conversation, they get into faith and what it has to do with winemaking. Now, that might not be a natural connection for all people. Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the US, of course, once wrote this in a letter to a French friend of his. We hear of the conversion of water into wine at the marriage in Cana as of a miracle. This is famously, of course, the first miracle of Jesus as reported in the Gospels. But, writes Franklin, this conversion is, through the goodness of God, made every day before our eyes. Behold the rain which descends from heaven upon our vineyards, and which incorporates itself with the grapes to be changed into wine, a constant proof that God loves us and loves to see us happy. Now that's a sentiment Daniel and Theo, who witnessed that conversion of grapes to wine close up, can get behind. But first, Natasha wanted to ask them about the delicate topic of what it's like to work so closely with family.
Working with family is great. We've had a really wonderful experience in growing together, I think, both Theo and I, but also my wife, Luann, who's Theo's sister. We've worked in close confines out of the back of my house in the early days, and we've worked with Theo's uncle as well, and we have had many, many children working in the office, folding boxes and this sort of thing, and helping in the vineyard. It's a blessing, and it helps so much. Even our employees, we consider them family, and we have a really family-friendly environment here. We want people to put their family first when they work for us. But yeah, the challenges, there's always going to be some challenges there. But I think if we can put our family priorities first and know that that's the most important thing, and then the business always comes second, then I think we can overcome anything and just realize what a blessing it is to work with family. And hopefully it's a witness as well, because it's not something that everyone seems to be able to do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's been an extraordinary privilege to work with Dan and with my sister Luann. We get to see each other pretty much every day of the week. And you hear, nightmare stories about working with family and business, but that hasn't been our experience at all. And I think it's at least partly because, we all have the same vision, the same sense that the business comes second. And we're enjoying the way that the business provides for our families. But ultimately, we're holding that loosely in our hands. We hope that we would willingly give up anything if it came down to it. We'd give it up in a moment and prioritize the more important things like family. But for us, it's been a wonderful opportunity to grow in our relationship with each other. We didn't start out working together. It was, several years after we were all getting married, and several years after I met Dan for the first time that we were working together. And we had those early days, we had to transition into that new phase of our relationship and find the balance and have robust conversations and be honest with each other. And they all served us, in strengthening our relationship, I think. But I've learned so much from Dan. He's been my mentor in many ways.
Oh, likewise. And one thing I'd say as a negative is we don't seem to be able to go on holidays together as a family as often as we'd like, because someone's got to hold the fort. So that's been a little bit sad, but we still try to prioritize that where we can. We knew that we could make it work, bro, after spending, how many weeks was it in Spain? 3?
Yeah.
3 weeks, you and I in Spain with hand luggage. We could travel the whole of Spain with hand luggage each, and visiting winery after winery on a bit of a pilgrimage to learn about Tempranillo. In 2013. I think we could probably survive anything together after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you are both Christians, and you think that that's not irrelevant to this work that you do. And I want to get into that with you. But maybe that connection wouldn't immediately be obvious for some listeners. People might not associate Christians with wine, maybe more likely to be known for not drinking alcohol or being a bit suspicious of it. Do you feel like is it a natural fit for Christians to make wine?
Yeah, I think it's a natural fit. Jesus himself is famous with his first miracle being making wine at a wedding.
In a hurry.
Yeah, and there are many biblical references to wine as being basically an exemplar of, the goodness of life and the goodness of God. It's one of the things that we can delight in flavor and in that community element of it as well. So when we think about our winemaking, we're conscious that, we're working with grapes that God made, and he could have made all grapes taste the same, but he didn't. He made there's over 3,000 different varieties and crossbreeds of different cultivars of the wine grapes. So there's so much diversity there, and it's similar to, you look at a field full of wildflowers. Every flower is different and unique, and you enjoy that diversity and that beauty, or looking at a sunset, or tasting different fruit or different foods. that variety and that creativity, we see it as a blessing and as a reflection of God's character. He is creative and he loves that diversity and that beauty. And so when we taste a really nice wine, or in the vineyard we taste really nice fruit that's in balance, then, we bask in that as a reflection of God's goodness.
Yeah, Benjamin Franklin apparently famously said something along the lines of, wine is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. It sounds like that might resonate for you guys.
Absolutely. I think there's definitely a misconception there that to be a Christian is about deprivation. I think in Psalms, it talks about God making wine to gladden the heart of man. And Jesus wants more for us. God wants us to be happy, to be joyful, to not be burdened. There's that fantastic tension between a little bit of wine being good and too much being a real negative and a real snare. I think it's a really good picture of our life here on earth. And we do need discipline, but to enjoy things is definitely a part of it. And it's not just about meeting our needs. There's something about wine and the way that the Bible talks about wine as being for joy. So in Isaiah, it talks about everyone that thirsts, come to the waters, and he who has no money, come buy and eat, come buy wine, milk, and then it goes on to talk about bread as well. So a couple of those things are essential, water and milk and bread, but wine is not essential. You can certainly live without it. But further in that passage, it talks about your soul may live. God wants us to live, and that's the whole theme, is he wants to save us from the things that prevent us from truly living.
We can have our vision full of the gift giver or fill our vision with the gift. When we take our eyes off of the one who's giving us the blessing and we put our eyes on the thing that has been given to us, that opportunity is always there to overdo it and become obsessed with the goodness of wine instead of the goodness of God in the blessing of wine. And that exists with food as well. We can overdo that and then we're gluttonous. So many good things in excess can become bad. So we're conscious of that. That's a risk or that's a temptation. We want to find that balance of enjoying the good things that God has given us in the measure that we're supposed to be enjoying them. No more and no less.
So what difference does your faith make to the practice and maybe the experience of making wine?
I think we trust that things are going to be okay no matter what happens. You're very much at the mercy of the season, the elements. When you're making wine, we're walking in the vineyards, we're making decisions. The main decision that we make with every single batch of wine is, when do we harvest it? That's the first thing. So we're learning about those vineyards every year and we're applying that experience. But there's an element of faith there. We need to make a decision that's not a panic decision. So you need to be really considered and prayerful about how we're going to go about things in the vineyard and in the winery. But also there's hard times, challenging times. And sometimes you question why we're doing what we're doing, and God leads us on a journey. And I think we definitely have seen that it's been a blessing to us and a blessing to others. And we've shared of some of our faith on some of the labels, and we've risked, I guess, putting those messages on there. And we don't push our faith on anyone, but we leave enough breadcrumbs there for people to understand that it's a very important part of what we do. The wines are going to stand up on their own regardless. They're fantastic quality. We've worked really hard. We've got great fruit, great grower partners, and they've got awards now. That's fantastic. But we want people to see our heart. We want people to think that our brand is different and we're different. That would be great if they found that out and enjoyed the wine and became curious about our faith because of that message.
Can you tell me about some of those wines, what you put on the bottles, what you've called them?
There's a few. There's the ones that are my children's names, Evangeline and Elijah. They both have names that are courtesy of our faith, and that was at a very early time in my Christian walk. Their names happen to alliterate well with Eden Valley, but we have a series of wines called Series Minimus, and it's all about the winemaker being the least. And I guess the message there is that we trust God. Lux Venet, Light Has Come, is from John 3:19. Salvus Gratia is our Semyon, that means saving grace. And each of these has a linked quote. So the Salvus Gratia one is Ephesians 2, verse 8, by grace you've been saved. And Pax Eterna is eternal peace, and that's John 14 there. So each of those links the chapter and verse, and if people are led to, they'll open it up and find out. I've had a winemaker sitting next to me and pick up the bottle and go, "Oh, Corinthians, that's a bit full on." And yeah, so they sometimes puzzled, but had someone talk about Evangelina the same way. A guy had a tasting, and my answer was, "Well, Jesus is a bit full on, isn't he?" And he just looked really quite puzzled and tasted the wine, and yeah, you could see he was taken aback.
It helps if people like the wine.
Oh, that's the first thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think regardless of what we could have done with our careers, we would want, our devotion to God to be front and center. So, if we were building a house, you'd want to build the walls straight to do a good job, as a reflection of Him again and His character. So when it comes to winemaking, we enjoy doing the best job that we possibly can and give Him the glory. And maybe it's a privilege that we have, that we're working with a natural product where we are subject to the season and the year and the conditions. And so we have a real constant sense that the outcome is not really in our control, that we really do need to give glory to God when it works out well and do the best that we can.
This has been Life and Faith with me, Simon Smart, and Natasha Moore. Our thanks, or shall we say cheers, to Daniel Chaffey Hartwig and Theo Engela for sharing with us something of the joys and challenges, but mostly the joys, of winemaking.
Big thank you as well to our producer, Alan Douthwaite, who loves a good beer.
Yes, he does.
If you have a wine snob friend, or maybe brother-in-law, who would enjoy this conversation, or maybe you're a wine lover who wants to invite a friend into your passion for wine and think this episode might be a good entry point for them, we love for listeners to share Life and Faith with others.
If you'd like to give us some feedback on Life and Faith, and we love to get feedback, please write to us at podcast@publicchristianity.org or leave us a rating or review. It helps to get us out to more people. Next time.
I made it to Remand where I was teaching, and the first voice I heard came from over my shoulder, and it was a young boy, and he yelled out, "I'm going to stab you." I looked over my shoulder, and luckily the voice was coming from a locked cell, so feeling even more sick in the stomach. And at that point I'm thinking, why didn't I listen to my wife?